Hello, hello, hello. I have some big news, you guys. The Supreme Court just handed President Donald Trump a massive win, smashing Democrats' scheme to tie his hands on deporting dangerous Venezuelan gang members. This isn't just a legal victory. This is a game changer for your safety and mine. Now, the ACLU tried to forum shop a DC judge. They ended up picking Judge Boasberg. But the court said that, guess what? This is judicial overreach, and I want to go into greater detail about this, but this is huge. I'll also be covering the tariff war that kicked off last night between President Trump and Xi Jinping of China. And President Trump says, in no universe will Iran ever have a nuclear war. It's just common sense. It will never happen. Thank you guys so much for liking and sharing these videos. I really appreciate it. Let's jump right into the news. In a resounding 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court has handed President Trump a major victory, lifting a restraining order that had blocked him and his administration from deporting alleged Venezuelan gang members under the Alien Enemies Act. This ruling is not just a win for Trump. This is a triumph for the safety of Americans and a stinging rebuke to the Democrats' underhanded strategy of using the lower courts in order to block and thwart a sitting president's agenda. We all know that this is lawfare, and now the Supreme Court has agreed with that. So the High Court struck down U.S. District Judge James Boasberg's judicial overreach, declaring his Washington, D.C. courtroom an improper venue for these types of cases. The ACLU has shamelessly forum shopped, banking a systematic judge they knew hated Donald Trump and would do what they wanted, which was tie his hands. Now, the Supreme Court, they saw through this ploy, and again, Judge Boasberg is not going to be able to tie Donald Trump's hands anymore. This decision reinforces Trump's authority as president to protect the United States from foreign threats and foreign invasion like Tren de Aragua gang members, MS-13, and other dangerous people that would do us harm, traffic, or bring drugs into the country. The Trump administration wisely conceded that detainees deserve individual review. However, instead of flying them all back, they're now petitioning the court to say an individual can have their day in court, but only if they ask for it and only if they do it outside of the United States. So for many Americans, this is going to be a breath of fresh air. President Trump promised to deport the killers, the gang members, the murderers, the rapists, and make America safe again. And this is just one more example of President Trump keeping his word. All right, now, speaking of Trump, things are intensifying between him and the country of China. He has just threatened to add 50% tariffs in response to Xi Jinping adding a 34% tariff to all American goods sold into China. Now, what Xi Jinping did was a reciprocal tax on Chinese imports. These new tariffs threatened to make things sell less that go into China. Trump is saying, no, this is not how it's going to happen. You are not dealing with a weak president like Joe Biden. In a Truth Social post, President Trump explained, yesterday, China issued retaliatory tariffs of 34% on top of their already record-setting tariffs. Non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation. Despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the United States by issuing additional tariffs above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation will immediately be met with new and substantially higher tariffs. Now, this is just going to keep going higher and higher. I believe that this will cool down and that they will find a win-win or at least a lose-lose situation where they feel like they're on equal footing. Now, Trump went on to say, therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term abuse, then I will hit them with a 50% additional tariff starting on April 9th, which is tomorrow. Now, additionally, all talks with China concerning the tariffs are ongoing. And now Japan is going to be flying in one of their people, and Vietnam is also. Now, while the tariff war continues, Vietnam offered to eliminate all tariffs, take them to zero, so that they would be taken seriously by America. However, Trump's top economic advisor, Peter Navarro, has firmly stated that the United States rejects Vietnam's reduced tariff to zero, saying that tariffs with Vietnam are not the problem. Navarro explained, let's take Vietnam. When they come to us and say, we'll go to zero tariff, that means nothing to us because it's the non-tariff cheating from Vietnam that matters. Navarro pointed out that the core issue lies in Vietnam's non-tariff barriers, practices like dumping, intellectual property theft, and a 10% value add tax on all goods. He argued that this is fueling a massive trade imbalance of 15-1, meaning that even though they say they want to do a zero tariff with these hidden taxes and stealing, they are still taking advantage of the United States of America. But Vietnam isn't the only country seeking to negotiate. Yesterday, in a late meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that they will seek to eliminate not only tariffs, but to reduce down to zero any trade deficit with the United States. Netanyahu stated, we intend to do it very quickly. We think it's the right thing to do. And we're also going to eliminate trade barrier, a variety of trade barriers that have been put up unnecessarily. We will eliminate the trade deficit with the United States, Mr. President, and we are also going to eliminate the tariffs. Now, this is huge because Trump said on Air Force One yesterday that, speaking of NATO and Europe, right? He said, so America spends nearly $1 trillion, hundreds of billions of dollars, defending all of Europe as the largest member of NATO. Then on top of that, we get hit with tariffs. Then on top of that, there's improper trade balance of like $300 billion. So Trump is saying, listen, you can have our protection and America will be the leader with the biggest military in the world, or you guys can quit cheating us when it comes to trade and start buying products from us and eliminating your tariffs. Now, the head of the European Union, Ursula, she is saying, we are ready to play ball, President Trump. We are ready to negotiate. Now, unfortunately, this has made things rocky in the stock market, but Peter Navarro says that he's not worried. This is a small temporary thing, and if people will just hold, their money will be fine. In fact, this brilliant Harvard economist said he believes the Dow Jones will be at 50,000 by 2028. So he's very bullish on America being a great place. Okay, speaking of stock traded companies, for many, many years now, Lowe's Hardware has been open on Easter. They're making a change. They said this Easter, they will close all 1,700 stores so that employees can spend time with family on this important international holiday. So bravo to Lowe's, putting an international holiday above profits so that people can spend time with their family members on Easter. Easter is a big holiday, not only for the Jews, but especially for the Christians. All right, back into the lawfare. Now, the Department of Justice is arguing that a federal judge cannot compel the Trump administration to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an MS-13 gang member who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. It's sad that we even have to argue this. Here's what's going on. U.S. District Judge Paula Zenith has issued an injunction demanding that Garcia be returned to the United States of America. However, the DOJ is saying that this is judicial overreach, that this person has, through credible intelligence, been linked to MS Gang 13 leadership, previous criminal record, and human trafficking of adults and possibly even children. Here's what's crazy. Chief Justice John Roberts, who's basically kind of blocked Trump in several ways, has now put a temporary block order on Judge Xi's order pending a Supreme Court review of whether President Trump has the authority. Now, this is a little bit different than the big win that I was telling you about, because these people are now trying to come back into the United States, and it's only Democrat judges that are trying to help these criminals. Isn't that crazy? Let me know in the comments. Why do you think these Democrats want murderers, rapists, human traffickers, drug dealers, gang members from other countries in our country? Are they that desperate for votes? Come on, this is crazy. Now, in a bold move regarding immigration enforcement, officials at the Department of Homeland Security have made an official government request to have IRS tax data to help locate 7 million illegal immigrants in the country. The goal is to identify individual suspects and then lawfully use the law to remove them. Some of these have been working and paying taxes. This would be a great way to track those people down. So 7 million immigrants have their records, and they believe about 700,000 of those are illegally working in the United States, which takes jobs from America, but also lowers wages for everyone around that illegal immigrant. So far, the IRS is fighting them, saying, no, 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 we need to keep this information private and confidential. However, the Department of Homeland Security is saying this is part of Trump's promise to keep America safe. All right, in international news, President Trump has revealed that the United States will begin direct negotiation and discussion with Iran this coming Saturday about their nuclear program. Speaking from the Oval Office, President Trump stated, "We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go down on Saturday. I think if talks aren't successful with Iran, I think Iran is going to be in great danger. And I hate to say it, because they can't have a nuclear weapon. It's not a complicated formula." Someone on X said, under no circumstances should Trump allow Iran to become a nuclear country. Pretty crazy. All right, I'm going to keep this sweet and short. I love you guys. I'll be back in my office very, very soon. My wife and I have been celebrating our 20th anniversary. Can you believe I've been married for 20 years? It's awesome. So, all right, I will see you guys on the next video. Stay amazing. I love you. See you on the next one.